Good morning. Following PowerPoint is a climatology for the Northern Rockies for the month June 2015. June produced numerous records across the region, especially with temperatures and low precipitation. This chart shows how dry it was not only in western Montana and central Idaho, but across much of the northwestern part of the United States. Widespread 25 to 50% of normal occurred across the region, with many pockets of less than 25% of normal for precipitation. The average temperature departure was also extremely warm across all of the Northwest and the Northern Rockies down into parts of the Great Basin. Average temperature departure was anywhere from 6 to 8 degrees above normal in most locations. So let's dig into the numbers a little bit. This graph shows how dry actual precipitation was across the region. Kalispell only had 1.17 inches of rain. This is for the spring months of April through June. Many areas were a deficit of rainfall, anywhere from 3 to 4 inches of rain. Once again, for the entire spring, we're looking at percent of normal precipitation. You can see Kalispell and Missoula were 20% and 33% respectively. Other parts of the region were well below normal for spring precipitation totals, right around 50%. So let's just look at June right now. Once again, actual precipitation was extremely low. And of note, the biggest amounts of rain occurred on June 1st and 2nd. It basically cut off after that. June is normally our wettest month, with anywhere from 2 to 2.5 inches of precipitation acquired by many valley locations and a little bit higher in the mountains. But you can see here that many areas didn't even receive an inch of precipitation for the month of June. And as we look at percent of normal for June, this really shows it that Missoula and Kalispell, for example, were 25% or less for precipitation, while much of the rest of the region was below 50% for precipitation. Let's look at some records now across the region, and there were several. June in Kalispell, they only had 0.6 of an inch of precipitation. This ties for six, this ties the record back to 1904. The record low for the entire month was set in 1910 at 0.4 of an inch. June was area-wide the hottest month, the hottest June on record across much of the entire region. The record high average temperature in Kalispell in June was 65 degrees. Record low precipitation, let's just go down to Missoula. Again, we tied for sixth lowest of all time. It stopped raining June 2nd, and we had 1 day of rain on the 29th of June. So we did tie for sixth with 51 hundredths. 22 hundredths was the all-time minimum for the month of June, set in 1918, which was also a warm year. Again, 1910 pops up here at 47 hundredths of an inch. Record high temperatures, record high average temperatures. This record was smashed in Missoula, I guess, if you want to. It was a significant record that was broken by 1.8 degrees. The next warmest month was set in 1918 at 66.1 degrees. Heading over to Butte, record low precipitation was 0.5 of an inch set in 1987. Well, this year we had 0.9 of an inch. That still sneaks us into the top 5 category for low precipitation in the month of June in Butte. Butte came close to breaking a record for their all-time highest average temperature in June. Not quite, but it was second. The warmest summer was in 1988. Excuse me, the warmest June was in 1988. Just want to take a side note. The only official records that we keep across the Northern Rockies are for Kalispell, Butte, and Missoula. Those are the only quote-unquote official stations. We do keep data for 38 stations across central Idaho and western Montana. But when we're talking records, it's just for those three. So, record number of 90-degree days in Kalispell, Montana. We beat that with 8. The record was 7. The previous record was 7 in 1974. The highest temperature ever recorded in the month of June in Missoula, Montana occurred this year. Actually, it occurred twice. 102 was set on the 28th, and 101 occurred on the 27th. Only the third and fourth time we've ever reached 100 in June. And in Kalispell, it's the first time we've ever reached 100 degrees in the month of June. In fact, the temperature was 102 on the 28th, and this beat the all-time record in June by 5 degrees. Also, as a side note, I kind of found was interesting that looking back at temperature data in West Glacier, I didn't find a 100-degree day at all in West Glacier for the last since 1948 when they've kept information. So they had a temperature of 101 degrees on the 28th, which is the first time they've ever had recorded a 100-degree day of any month of any year. So here's another record. Consecutive days with no rain in June. 26 in 2015 this year. The previous record was almost 100 years ago when they had 21 days in the month of June with no rain. The streak will likely continue through the 4th of July. The all-time record for consecutive days with no rain, though, is 42. Missoula also, we had consecutive days with no rain. Set was 26th. That streak ended on June 29th when we had 0.05 of an inch of rain. Once again, the previous record was back in 1922 with 21. Back to Kalispell really quick. That streak of 26 continues, and likely once again will continue for the 4th of July weekend. Okay, so as we get into consecutive days with max temperature 90 or greater, we tied that one back, dates back 40 years. We've had 5 days consecutive 90-degree weather. That will spill over into July. Same thing in Missoula. We had 5 days, excuse me, of temperatures of 90 degrees or greater. Actually, the records that occurred were 7, both in 1970 and 74. The outlook for the next through mid-July is continued harder than normal and drier than normal conditions through July 14th. Now, this doesn't mean we're not going to get rain. We could see some days of thunderstorms, but area-wide, their confidence is still pretty strong for below normal precipitation. And the average temperature this time of year is in the lower 80s. As we get later, probably into the first week of July, the average high temperature in Missoula, for example, is 85. But overall, we're still expecting above normal temperatures, whether it's 90 or 95 above normal temperatures across the region. And finally, from our drought monitor, this was issued last Thursday. We are categorized now in a moderate drought across the majority of western Montana and all of central Idaho. In fact, parts of the panhandle in Idaho are categorized in a severe drought. This likely will expand over the next couple weeks, given the fact we're not expecting any rain. So in summary, June 15th was our hottest month on record across the majority of the Northern Rockies. June 15th was also one of the driest months on record. With the exception of southwest Montana, they were dry but not extremely dry. And finally, moderate drought has developed over the Northern Rockies and will likely worsen over the next few weeks due to hotter and drier normal conditions that are forecast through mid-July. Well, I hope everyone has a good day.